Welcome to SOLEIL After Dark, conversations on sex, trauma, and the body. A podcast guided by passionate trauma and sex therapists who talk about the stuff people don't always feel safe talking about. We're here to explore the real-life intersections of sexuality, trauma, healing, intimacy, and the mind-body connection. Our hope is that this podcast feels like a grounded, stigma-free space. One that provides thoughtful conversation, education, and rays of hope and light to those keeping their secrets, fears, memories, and the most intimate parts of their lives hidden in the shadows. This is where the shadows soften, the conversation deepens, and healing begins. Right here.
Welcome everyone to SOLEIL After Dark, conversations about sex, trauma, and the body. My name is Coley, and I'm super excited to have you all here for our first episode of our podcast. Joining me today are two wonderful therapists here at our practice. I want to take a moment to introduce the person that will be talking about our first topic this week, which is going to be sexuality, one of the core things that we practice here at SOLEIL. So I am wanting to welcome and introduce to you all a friend, a mentor, an incredible therapist, someone who this practice could not run without. This is Rachel.
Hi.
Everyone say hi, Rachel, from your homes. And joining us today to also be chatting with us is another wonderful therapist here at the practice, also one of the managers and helpers here. We have Stephen.
Hello.
Welcome. How exciting. I wanted to start really fast, maybe actually each getting your credentials just so people back at home can know what you do, who you are, and then we'll kind of be a bit more in depth. Rachel, what is your actual licensing?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I'm also a certified sex therapist and a certified drug and alcohol counselor.
Beautiful, thank you. Stephen, what about you, sir?
I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor as
Good
well.
job. Yeah, wonderful. Rach, since you are sharing with us about sexuality today, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more in depth about your background, about how you got into this work, just whatever feels helpful to start with.
Yeah, so this is actually my second career. I started out in the arts. I think something I was always very curious about, I was always curious about psychology and people, which led me into the arts specifically. But I think, over time, I think I really valued and realized I wanted that direct contact with people and sharing and holding really intimate, authentic space.
Oh, beautiful. How did you find yourself getting into sexuality work in particular?
Yeah, so in my internship, I was doing substance use treatment and community mental health. And that was where I was first exposed to a lot of concerns around sexuality. I think in recovery with withdrawal, many people have never had sex without being under the influence of substances. It was a big topic coming up, and I was very interested in the intersection of the two, which led me to the specialty.
Wow. That actually does make a lot of sense. For people listening, I'm wondering, why does this feel important to pull into therapy work? I think a lot of the time people hear sex therapy and they think, oh, I only can go in and talk about sexual concerns. And if that's not me, I'm not going. You know what I mean? Like that's just not a place for me. Why is it important to pull this into your work? And maybe what makes it different from traditional talk therapy in your experience?
Yeah, so sex therapy is talk therapy, but it isn't limited just to sexual topics. I think when we talk about sexuality is a big umbrella. There's a lot of things that fall underneath that. So that can look a lot of different ways in the therapy room. It can be, truly like how you are being sexual with someone else. It can look like relational communication concerns. It can look like transitional moments, right? Postpartum, aging, after trauma. I think there's a lot of ways. Also identity, what's my gender identity? What's my sexual orientation? Who am I feeling desire for, attraction for? What feels good in my body? There is a huge exploration component there. So I think sex therapy is very expansive. I think it touches on all kind of aspects of your life.
That is something when people ask about what we do here, I think very often people think we're just going to talk about sex and it feels very contained, right? Like that is something that is stuck in my bedroom waiting for me. And I find that very often people don't realize how much that mirrors or bleeds into the rest of their lives, right? Because we're talking about even generally the ability to be present, the ability to experience pleasure, which isn't always just sexual. So I find that to be interesting when I see people wondering what this is. Do you know, who do you feel like is right for sex therapy when someone is like, okay, is this the right kind of treatment for me? Who do y'all feel like you're seeing the most often? What kind of presentations show up the most in your work? Who's coming in?
Yeah, I would say that sex therapy is for everybody. I think there's no
easy.
I think there's no kind of disqualifiers there. I would say that if you're feeling stuck in some way, if you're feeling avoidance, if you're kind of unsure, kind of questioning, if there are kind of these just maybe even a curiosity, kind of an exploration that you're interested in, kind of having contained and kind of being sparked by another individual. I would say that's a good time to come to sex therapy.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. I think that what we see the most coming in is desire discrepancies. Or kind of these questions about like, I feel like my body should be doing XYZ, but I'm not experiencing that. I think we see a lot of anxiety coming in around sexuality for various different reasons. And sometimes pain and discomfort. I think that's also very common.
Yes. The desire discrepancy, is that showing primarily up with couples work? Are you also finding that individuals will come in on their own to talk about that? How do you all see that presentation come in?
I see it more often with couples, but it certainly does come in with individuals as well. I think it's more fruitful to talk about that within the actual system where it's occurring, because part of the important work of desire discrepancy is highlighting the discrepancy as the problem, rather than like one or the other person is at fault.
It almost feels important to throw out there, because I know a lot of people listening are going to be brand new to this, right? They're like, what is sex therapy? We're talking a little bit about this like individual setting, right? You and your therapist. There's also the couples setting. There's couples therapy that involves sex therapy. You can blend these two together. That feels helpful for everyone to know. I want to narrow the scope of our questions a little bit for a moment, get a little specific.
Okay.
So a lot of the work we do here is involving the body, pairing that with sexuality. So a lot of nervous system work, a lot of our somatic work, right? Maybe broadly, for someone who's new, could you talk a little bit about the relationship between the brain, the nervous system, sexual functioning? How do these all fit together, maybe in an intro sense? Because I know this is a very deep topic.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when there's sexual dysfunction or sexual challenges, people are saying like, what's wrong with my body? Like functionally, what's broken?
Yes.
And I think we're not thinking so much sometimes about the relational or the just psychological aspects of it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who said it, but they said, the brain is the biggest sex organ.
Yes.
I think they're all interconnected. I think what is happening in terms of kind of how we relate to our thoughts and how do we relate to others, our culture, our environment is influencing our nervous system.
Yes.
And I think our nervous system needs, in most cases, to be in a parasympathetic state, so a regulated, calm state, in order to be able to fully experience pleasure and kind of release inhibition.
Oh, very, very helpful. Yes. So you're finding that a lot of this is about regulating, finding safety, finding a sense of calm. Stephen, I know you work a lot with couples, and that feels like a really big part of our work as well, is also bringing in the relationship element.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you see this as well in couple settings? And how does it show up differently, maybe from an individual setting? Or maybe they're the same?
No, it's definitely different, because there's the individual stuff that's happening, but then there is kind of how you see people bouncing off of each other.
Oh, interesting.
How they're reacting to each other, and needing to find that co-regulation where one person getting more grounded can influence the other person getting a little more grounded, or frequently the exact opposite, where one person's getting fired up and then it escalates. It can kind of be an upward spiral of getting more grounded and present and secure together, or it can kind of flare up and get people further away from where they want to be.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I can see that with people. For both of you guys, when I'm thinking about the nervous system, this is something that, because we've been in the field, this feels like such a no-brainer to us. To someone who's new, right? That this doesn't mean a whole lot. When we're talking about the nervous system and they're like, I have no idea if I'm regulated or dysregulated. If someone was listening right now, are there kind of some initial cues or signs that they could look for, things they could tune in with just to start thinking about this? If someone wanted to start to notice their own nervous system, where would you point them?
Yeah, I would notice, I think when we're talking about the nervous system and the nervous system states, when we're talking about a dysregulated state, we're talking about either, a hyper arousal, meaning oftentimes we're noticing like very activated states in the body. So like heart rate, maybe breath is increasing, maybe you feel a little bit restless. Sometimes people feel irritated, agitated, angry. When we're talking about the opposite, hypoarousal, there's less happening in the body. The body's shutting down to conserve energy. So they might be feeling, like I feel kind of distance from you, or I'm feeling kind of slow or sluggish, or maybe I just don't feel a lot of activity. Maybe I feel like pretty neutral, but there's just not a lot of sensation happening. I don't feel very kind of connected. Maybe it takes a lot of energy to, I think, feel connected to another human being or kind of show up in certain spaces.
Beautiful.
So I think when we think about a calm, regulated state, the body's online, it's humming, it's tuning in, it's interacting. And it doesn't mean that there isn't negative things happening or just uncomfortable things happening.
That's helpful.
But it's in this kind of window, we call it the window of tolerance, where we're not feeling kind of out of control, in kind of either direction.
Oh, very helpful. Love that. I would be curious how that feels for people as they're listening to kind of start to look for these, because that feels like a very clear place to start. It makes me think a little bit about how, back a few sentences, you were sharing that there's so many shoulds, right? And shoulds can feel so bad. Like that could, I imagine, impact how you're feeling, nervous system regulation in general. There's so many stories we're told about how we're supposed to be. I actually would be interested in asking this question to both of you. What is a myth or a should that you hear the most often coming into your work that maybe you'd like to pop the bubble on for a moment?
Yeah. Oh, that one's hard because I think there's so many. I think we call that a demand statement. And anytime I hear a demand statement, should, must, have to, immediately my mind goes to like, this was learned. So who taught us this? Why have we absorbed it? Do we know that we absorbed it? So I think there's so many of these. I think the one that I see showing up the most pervasively is that, we have to be having sex at this frequency. At this time for this person, or this means something really negative about our relationship. I think there's some very rigid ideas about frequency and how people are having sex.
Absolutely.
That are just untrue and I think very taught by our culture.
Yes, I also see that all the time. Stephen, what about you? Is there one that you really see a lot that you would like to throw away?
I see frequently, especially in longer term couples or people who are in their first long-term relationship, where there is a should of, this is what my sex life was like in my 20s, or this is what my sex life was like in the 3-month relationship that I had that was kind of a passionate fling, and now we're 8 years in, and why is it different from that? And of course it's different from that. It's going to change and evolve and feel very different and require more nurturing and adaptation and things like that in a longer term relationship. So I see people getting really frustrated because it feels like a loss, or like there's something wrong because it's not that white hot initial crazy early relationship stuff. And there are ways to recapture elements of that, but mostly it's about accepting that is more contained, that's a phase, and that it's not really long-term sustainable.
Yeah. Well, to jump off that too, I will say, I think often asking the question, like, where do we learn about sex in our culture? It's the media, it's porn.
Big time.
And I think what Stephen's referencing too, I think there's so much that is not talked about or taught that is a part of our sexuality and the growth of our sexuality over a lifespan.
Yes.
And I think, you know, there's just so much, like how to regulate the nervous system is not shown kind of in the media and porn. I think talking about how sex changes and the purpose of it changing, not shown. There's so many elements I think that we talk about in sex therapy that aren't kind of modeled or taught out in the world.
You know, when I was thinking about this question coming in today, and it's very similar to where you're both landing, something that I see across the board is this belief that there is that we don't learn here. You come in good at this, and if you aren't good and if you don't know, there's something bad. Like the idea of being bad in bed, heavy air quotes for people just listening, is a nightmare, right? There's so much shame around it. And there's this belief that there's we don't have, if you have to work at it, right? If we have to change, or if we have to put a little extra effort into calming ourselves, becoming present, because suddenly our life has changed. All of these feel like marks on your relationship and on your sexuality. If I have to learn and try, if it's not innate, spontaneous, and like instinctual, that this is somehow bad. And so I tell people all the time, I'm like, you had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat. Like you didn't know how to do anything. Why would this be different? But I'm shocked at how much that's in our culture. But when I picture any sex scene from on TV, I think you're right. There's a very particular early relationship phase that's captured. Other than that, I feel like I'm never seeing these longer term relationships.
We don't see communication. We don't see kind of negotiation. We don't see about people learning about other bodies or looking at preferences or exploring changes over time.
I did see a stand-up comedian say recently, and I thought it was actually really lovely. She said, I have had the worst sex of my life with my husband, and I have had the best sex of my life with my husband. It's just because you have so many times with them. So you definitely don't see that. I agree with you. Did I steal your thought? Did you have a thing you were going to say?
No, I mean, I have many ideas that come up to this. Like
I wanted to make sure.
You're uncorking the rant.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Well, actually, maybe this will continue the rant a little bit. In all of this is shame, right?
Yeah.
This is so present in the work that we do. It's present even outside of work with sexuality. It's just such a huge thing in our field. But I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about an intersection of everything we've been talking about, right? How the nervous system reacts to shame, how media and myths and these shoulds interact with shame. So I'm going to start really broad for a moment, and then we can narrow it a bit. Tell me a little bit about where you see shame in the work, how you interact and work with it, because I think that is just really common, unfortunately.
Yeah, I will say, I think shame is a pro-social emotion. So I think I always orient people to, like, why does shame exist? I think shame exists to keep us connected. I think shame shows up when we're fearful of disconnection with others.
Yeah.
And I think what I see as the antidote to shame, and Brene Brown speaks to this, has done a lot of research around shame, is the antidote to shame is vulnerability.
Yes.
So when you can come and you can share and you can have that be received in a safe and affirming way, even if you don't necessarily agree, or, you know, I think being able to explore something safely and know that you're not going to be disconnected from the people you love or want to be connected to, I think shame tends to disappear. So I think because sexuality is such a taboo topic, I think because we don't talk about it, we don't, you know, I think there's a lot of spaces in our culture that don't feel safe or kind of shame. I think very normal, biological, pro-social, pro-relational behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think people don't know where it feels safe to talk about this or to share or to process or to learn or to explore about sexuality. So I think sex therapy becomes that space for a lot of people. And I would say if you have shame, that's very normal given kind of where we are in our culture. But I think it also doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, that there's something bad, that there's something, you know, that you are going to be rejected for on a large scale. So I think we welcome shame in our spaces.
It almost feels like maybe coming in and having that conversation with someone in a therapy setting might be the first step towards that vulnerability, right? Like just saying it to someone would feel really powerful. Do you feel like you see shame show up in the couples sexuality space as well, I imagine it has to be rife because you have the amount of stigma on sexuality and the stigma around being in a good relationship.
Yes.
So you kind of have a double whammy.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's rooted in those expectations. This is supposed to be easy.
Yes.
This isn't how this is supposed to go. I've never seen or heard of people having problems with this because it's not talked about. The the ever present, like, an erection is required for successful sex.
Yes.
An orgasm is required. These things where if people aren't checking these boxes, there's this I've failed.
Yeah.
And shame loves the shadow. It wants to retreat, and then these things just kind of fester. And having the couple space where these things can come out and be witnessed not just by the couples therapist, but like talked about and given some room to breathe in the therapy room is really powerful.
I will say too, something I see that shows up in the couple space a lot is when there is desire discrepancy and someone's struggling with desire, disconnecting that from, it's not that I'm not attracted to you or that I don't desire you in certain ways. I think there's a lot of fear around that too. Like, if I share with you that I don't want to have sex, like, you are going to think it's about you. When really there's so much that contributes and kind of takes away that experience of wanting to have sex.
Oh, that's really helpful, I think, for people to leave with, is this idea that because we don't talk about it enough, we have just basically the internet and love stories to go off of. We think everything is going to be deeply personal, when actually something I'm taking away from talking to you both is there's so much more that goes into sexuality, right? This nervous system and body piece, safety, this ability to have your partner be present and listen and have communication that feels good and safe. There's so much that goes into being able to actually have the sex life you want and the sexuality you desire. It's not just this black and white, something's wrong with me or something's not. I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong. Which is maybe a beautiful place for people to start and decide to come in and talk to someone about it. So I really appreciate that. I could ask you a million more questions. I could talk to you guys all day. I love this topic and I love listening to you both speak about it. I want to thank you both for your time and your brains, and thank everyone for listening. We here at SOLEIL like to start and end a lot of our meetings with a ray of light. And so we wanted to pass that along to everyone listening. So for today, I wanted to ask you, Rachel, to shed a ray of light. This could be a bit of hope, encouragement, a sentiment, just something you would want someone who might be struggling as they're listening to leave listening to us with. It could be anything. I want to leave it wide open for you. What's your ray of light?
I would just say that, anyone kind of questioning their experience or their identity, you're not broken. I think there's just something we don't understand yet about your experience and how to bring that into the world, your culture, your relationships. So I think if you are feeling broken, like, there's hope.
That's beautiful. Well, I want to thank you both, and I want to thank everyone listening. If you are interested in talking to either of these humans or one of our many other people here at SOLEIL, please reach out to us, phone, website, or email. We would love to get you set up with somebody, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Coley.
Yeah, thank
you.
Quick reminder before you go. This podcast is for education and general information. It isn't therapy, and it's not a substitute for personalized mental health or medical care. We're therapists, but we can't offer individual advice through a podcast. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and if you're dealing with something tender or intense, we really encourage you to connect with a licensed professional who can support you personally.